to bring it back to AI and how they correspond to nukes, a group of researchers did a study. They employed all the major AI, the large AI processes like, ChatGPT and stuff, and gave them a military war game. And they said, okay, solve this. These two countries are fighting. How do you solve it? 95% of the cases, the AI chose to drop a nuke. So the AI does not have the same type of boundaries as humans do. The AI cannot see that, oh, this is too powerful for us to use because it will destroy us. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have what people have.
And that's
And
a
Yeah, but
so I think
situation, right? That was a closed box
that
situation.
was a closed box theoretical discussion, but 95% across many different AI companies, they chose to drop nukes to end the war because it was the fastest and most efficient way to get to the solution. But people don't work like that. And this is one thing that I agree wholeheartedly with Brian. We've entered dangerous new territory, and we have to make sure that we can control it and keep it in check. Otherwise, we might destroy ourselves.
well, I mean, there are people who will drop a nuke, to your point about we've done it
True.
once, well,
Yeah.
twice, as you said, so there are people who will use nuclear weapons. So it's not that humanity is incapable of that. But I do see what you're saying about, like, using artificial intelligence, or relying too much on artificial intelligence to make a decision like that. Part of what the dust up with Anthropic and the Department of Defense is kind of what it was all about, even though they also objected to it being used by ICE. So I definitely see your point there. I guess I want to say it again. We're not helpless. It's just that we already live in a society where capital or corporations has way more power than labor, which is most of the rest of us. And so we're already in that society. So to me, artificial intelligence development, creation, and all that stuff, it just fits in with so many other things that are connected to that imbalance. That's all I'm saying.
Has more perceived power. I kind of feel like if people ever recognize that they have I mean, that's the thing. People don't realize it, but there are so vastly many more people who don't have shit that they could definitely turn the tables very easily. And that's,
Well,
Yeah,
there's
that's
a
what,
tipping point. There's always a
yeah.
tipping point when they finally realize it. As you spoke of revolutions, the French Revolution, there was a tipping point. We might get there. You never know.
yeah, we'll see.
And on an optimistic note, bye everybody. Until next time.
Until next time.
So Alison, how was your trip? You just
Yeah.
got back, right?
Well, yes, I did just get back. We got some cool swag. This is from the Banff Arts and Conference Center.
Nice.
Yeah, it's when I went to this, so it was the AI summit for arts and culture, basically. So an intersection of the cultural sphere. There were people who ran production companies for films and TV. There were heads of museums. There were people who, ran organizations for nationwide, for composers, for musicians, and for writers. So like there was all the cultural sectors there. On top of that, there were also a whole bunch of CEOs and directors of AI companies. And these weren't the big ones. It wasn't like, ChatGPT was there or anything, but these were smaller to medium-sized AI companies where some of them were using the larger companies to, create their own apps, but some of them were creating like their own AI systems in like sort of a closed system so they could put it towards a specific use for the cultural sector.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a wide assortment of people. There were about 300 300 of us from across Canada. And in addition, there were a couple of ministers there from the Canadian government. There was the Minister of AI and Technology, Evan Solomon, and then there was the Minister of Culture, Mark Miller. So, and the ministers didn't just come in and give a speech and leave. They stayed for the conference and they said, we want to hear, basically, and they used the word shit, we want to hear all the shit you have to tell us. So people were going up to them all throughout the conference and bending their ear, and basically, yeah, they were listening. And so I went there because,
Okay.
as you guys know, I'm very anti AI in creative works. Is everyone on the same page with that, or do you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm anti-existing at all.
I mean, do any of you use AI at all?
I use it as a search engine, like I use Google. It just comes up with quicker remarks, but everything has to be checked anyway, so it's funky.
Well, I mean, actually, this video is being recorded partly through an AI system. And
Yes.
for the editing thing, I don't know anything about video editing. And so the way that I edit the video is there's a transcript on one side of the screen in the dashboard. And then there's like the actual, like a little, I don't know, it's almost like a workspace with the video in it, with our video in it, even though the final product I discovered after our first recording, that's not what it's going to look like, because sometimes they'll shrink it, you know, to suit your face or whatever. But I see the whole thing, the whole range, field of vision that your camera captured. And then on the other side, there are all these AI tools. And so first thing I do is I click get rid of the ums and ahs. That's the first button I click. And so that's one of the reasons why the final video tends to move along a lot smoother than our conversation is actually going. I mean, it's easier to watch it when there are few ums and ahs. It'll get rid of. There's another button to get rid of repetitive statements. So if we repeat ourselves or something like that, I click that button and the AI eliminates all that. And we're all using different microphone systems and recording systems for the audio. And so I click a button, enhance audio, and that puts all of our voices up to the same level. So we basically sound like we're using as similar microphones, if not the same microphone. And then there's one other thing related to, like, just, I guess, banter. So you can tell the AI to find everyday conversation as opposed to what we're actually, the subject matter of what we're talking about. And then the other thing that the AI does is it creates shorts based on the topic. So it'll create a short of you talking about your trip to this AI conference. It'll create a short of that, so I don't have to do it.
So let me ask you
But
this:
you're
is
not
the AI
using it.
smart enough to determine?
Sorry.
I'm saying, is
Go
it
ahead,
smart
Brendan.
enough to distinguish between an and ah, or us theoretically talking about ums and ahs? Like, is it going to take out
Yeah,
me
that
mentioning
was
an
my
and
question.
ah in this sentence? Is it? Yeah.
I never would.
Well, this AI is not smart in that sense. So whatever it does, like, is good at getting the video to the point where if you just click those buttons and then export that video, it's a lot easier to watch than the raw video. Believe me, I've watched the raw video. It's not easy to watch. And so it's smart enough to do that. But what I discovered, I think I explained this to you guys, is that if you want to do something more complicated, then the AI is like really no help at all. And that's where you have to know what you want to do. You know, you have to figure out how to make the dashboard, use the tools in the dashboard to do it. And so all that stuff, like the video with the cats and stuff, I figured all that stuff on myself, you know, because I tried the very first time I tried to do something more complicated like that. I asked the AI how to do specific things, and it wouldn't really explain it. But what they've trained this AI to do is it will respond as if it answered my question. So it responds almost like a customer service person who will always say, you know, say with confidence a particular statement. But what it seems like what it did is it went into their support, like documentation, on the relevant documentation or documentation that might reasonably relate to my question. And then it spits out that documentation as an answer. And then it says, you know, I hope that I have answered your question. Please ask another question if you have any more problems. And the very first time it did that, I was just like, no, that doesn't answer my question. And so I told it, no, that's not an answer to my question. And I asked the question again, and it just gave me another list of support documentation stuff. And then it said, I have answered your question. Please ask another question if you have any more problems. And I was like, you have not answered my fucking question. That's what I
No,
typed.
that's really interesting because you're actually talking to it as if it was a person, and that's really interesting. And I know that's how it's designed. So
Well,
that's
I'm
fascinating.
used to talking to it because I guess going back to answering Allison's question, I also use Copilot and Gemini. And one of the things that I like about Copilot in particular is I kind of use it as if I'm talking to myself, because sometimes I can't remember something specific, but I kind of have like a vague, hazy memory that is related to this or related to that. And so I'll sort of ask Copilot, "Hey, have you heard this song, from the 80s that was out about 82 or 83 and it was really popular and related to a movie?" And its answer will sort of jog my memory,
Yeah.
for what I'm actually trying to remember. The song may not be the thing I'm trying to remember. I may actually be trying to remember like the name of Fast Times at Ridgemont High or something like that. But just having the AI spit out information, and Copilot is actually pretty good at doing that. I mean, it actually gives me a lot of information. Gemini is the difference between Copilot and Gemini is Gemini just gives you the information. It doesn't try to engage you. Whereas Copilot will say, "Oh, that's a great question, Henry," and then it'll give me a lot of, it'll answer the question. And then at the end, it always tries to get me to ask another question. That's the way
You
Copilot is
don't use it in your
designed.
creative work, AI?
Well, I don't know if you consider what I just said as part of my creative work, because sometimes I'm just trying to jog my memory for something.
Writing, your writing itself.
No. I
No, yeah.
don't use it for my writing. It
But it
tries to
sounds like
get me to do that
research.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
research. Yeah.
use it for work quite a bit, actually, Copilot, because you know what it's actually good at? It's a Microsoft tool. It's good at giving you instructions for other Microsoft tools. So I
Oh,
use
okay.
things like Excel and Power BI. And when I mess something up, like an Excel function, and then I can just take a picture of the screen with the error that's there, and it gives you instructions on how to fix it. Like that's the kind of targeted way that I use it.
That's interesting, because the thing about Microsoft years ago is that the worst place to go to figure out how to fix a Microsoft problem was Explorer. Explorer was the worst place to go. You always had to go to Google. That's how you would get an answer. Whereas if you went to Explorer, you wouldn't find the answer. That's
You mean like their own
interesting
help pages?
Yeah, on their own help pages. I don't know. They just didn't seem to have they didn't seem to have as good an index of their own help, like help pages, just like you're saying.
That's still true. The help pages are garbage, but actually using the Copilot works well.
Okay, so Copilot is probably scraping the internet for stuff on other websites
Yeah,
where
I mean,
people
it's
are
good.
talking
It's
about
good at
They all
looking
do.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good at
Yeah,
looking
yeah, yeah.
specifically at your error though, and giving you the solution. Whereas the help function, you have to first translate from your own mind it into help in order to search for a question. Whereas
Mhm.
this, you can just kind of screenshot it,
Yeah.
or tell them to literally read the document, which they can because it's
Right.
Microsoft,
Right.
and it gives you solutions for it.
I
So
have noted. Go ahead, Deborah.
it was you that got me using it as a search tool instead of Google. I remember I was doing some research for my novel, and there was a question about something that was happening in the turn of the century, and you had mentioned that it actually is one of the good things one of the useful things
Yeah,
that
yeah. I always double check what it says
double
though,
check.
because
Yeah.
sometimes it's just wrong. But yeah,
That's true. That's true. But I'm not really as concerned about exactly what year this happened or exactly what year that happened. Really, what I'm looking for is color and just a feel of what's going on. And it used to take me a lot longer to actually do a series of searches on Google
You have
to get the information.
so many articles, and you have to find
Exactly.
it's cumbersome, and it's for something that's not needing to be absolutely factually right. I think it's really a useful tool. It's been for me anyway.
I totally agree.
But Pandora's box is what it is. It's a Pandora's box, and I think I think of it as a cancer. It's just something that you shouldn't even go to for anything more than that. I think it's not. It's bad. It's
Yeah, I mean, we
destructive.
talk about the arms race nature of it. Everyone going to being afraid that they're going to be left behind by others
Yeah.
using that. And I definitely feel that in terms of my work, not my writing work, which is a
Uh-huh.
completely different thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of my work, it's just like I can't let other people that are as clueless as me have the advantage of this intelligence. You know, they're able to write code for things and snippets, whereas I'm not, because I'm refusing to use this.
Yeah.
I have to leverage it as well.
Do you
Yeah.
think
I
there
mean,
will be
that's
a
one of the
time?
things.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Allison. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that was one of the main topics of the conference, actually. People were afraid of being left behind if they didn't use it, especially the CEOs of a lot of companies and a lot of the heads in the cultural sectors were saying, well, everyone else is doing it, so why we should do it too. Which sort of reminds me of like one thing that I tell my kids, like, if everyone else jumps off a bridge, are you going to too? It sort of seems like that in a way. Like, are you going to follow everyone else off the cliff? Because we don't exactly know what we're doing with this. So,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Deborah.
Well, I mean, can you envision a time when this is just going to be business as usual, people using AI? And I asked that question because my son, Wright, is a sports fisher hunting writer for various publications. And he's got a couple of places he works, and they want you to use AI to do some of these articles, which I was really
In what
shocked to
way?
discover. What?
In what way do they want them to use AI?
They have these sometimes magazines, well, they're always looking for content, and these magazines will spit out articles that review equipment, where they'll look at various kinds of equipment and decide which one is a better shoe to wear and a better tent to get and that sort of thing. And these are not articles that they're very rudimentary articles, and they just feel that you can just spit them out. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. And in that context, they're saying, yeah, use AI. If that's you just go ahead and use it. We're fine with that, which I was really surprised at. But maybe it's an expediency issue. I don't know. But I guess my question is, do you think there will come a point when using AI is just how everybody works from a creative point of view?
I don't know about from a creative point of view. I think we're already there as far as a professional point of view, though. Like in terms of like, cleaning code and stuff like that. We're already at a point where
Right.
most people are using it.
Right.
But like from a creative perspective, I kind of feel like,
I don't know.
the point of me doing this is more my own sanity
Yeah.
than like than like generating output. So I don't feel any pressure to use it for creative efforts. But
I think in terms of Google, and when Google started, there are people who I think looked at it really askance, because they're people who like to go to original sources. So they'll sit in a library and they'll do their research, and along comes Wikipedia, right? And that's got to be horrifying to somebody who goes to original sources, because now you're depending on what people are saying, and you're just, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I'm just extrapolating from that to see what you think is in store for us here. What do you think, Allison? You just came back.
Yeah, I think we are sort of in the Wild West right now when it comes to AI, because we're exploring and we don't know exactly where we're going, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But I think, especially in the creative community, there's been a lot of backlash against it. So I'm not sure that it's ever going to be front and center, especially for when you think of things like books, fiction, like art. Some artists are already incorporating it into their work, but as sort of supplemental rather than primary. So I feel like the direction that we're going to go forward is that, I mean, the one of the largest demographics that aren't using it are creatives. So, and there's been a lot of backlash against it. For example, I don't know if you guys heard about the London Book Fair. The London Book Fair, a whole bunch of big name authors published blank books, which basically said on the cover, "Don't steal me." And it was I think it was like hundreds or thousands of authors did this as sort of like a pushback against AI. So yeah, Yeah, you can look it up. It's pretty cool. Just blank books with their name and don't steal me. So I think the way forward, and this is one thing that came up in the summit, was finding ways, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, but finding ways to, sort of ethically create new AI in addition to compensating creators for their works that have already been taken and used to train these large language models of generative AI. So that was one direction forward. And then we can use it for these very mundane office tasks, I would say.
Well, in terms of creatives, the other way that I use AI is I use an AI system to generate images that I upload for my post on Substack. And so if you go to my Substack page, it's full of all of these really sharp images and compelling images. All I'm really doing is I go to ideogram.io and other people are creating images with prompts. And so if I look for images that were created by other people using prompts that are close to what I'm trying to do, and then I copy their prompt and I adjust it to make it in the hopes that the AI will generate exactly what I'm looking for.
How is
And
that
so,
a Google image search or Shutterstock? How is that different from that?
well, it's different from that in the sense that, like last night, I created an image for one of the characters in my submission today. So the character is Lady Elizabeth. She's a host for a talk show called Holding Court, and so I wanted an image of like this. It's for television, it's going to be flashy and compelling. And I'll even show you guys the image once we switch to our actual regular meeting. I'll upload it so you can take a look at it. But it's totally different from going to, what was it you asked me about, Deborah? Google.
An image search on Google or Shutterstock?
So Shutterstock, I mean, I suppose they do have illustrations, but Shutterstock mostly has photographs.
They have everything.
Whereas,
Actors, they have illustrations, they have everything. They have video.
well, the thing about Ideogram and some of these other, they're really impressive. The main thing, you're using just a description, a text description of what you want. You're asking the AI, you're prompting the AI to produce an illustration or even a photograph, something that looks like a photograph based on your description of it in words, and so then the AI basically uses all of the techniques and information that is collected from human beings who have created illustrations over decades, whatever's on the internet, and it uses all of that stuff to create an image, to create the image for you. It gives you 4 options. So I'm adjusting these prompts because I tried prompting it myself. And you spend a lot more money when you do it that way, because every time you ask it to create an image, you're using points, which you buy. So the most efficient way to use your points is to find a prompt that's close to what you're trying to do, and then just alter that prompt. So that verbal description or that written description of what you're looking for, other people have used prompts. They've already created prompts to produce images. So you've got the image and you have the prompt, you copy the prompt and then you just adjust it. So if it's a guy in their image, you just replace man with female
I get it.
or woman.
Yeah. So, Alison, what else happened at the conference? Was there talk about how these things could be addressed? Is there something in the works that helps it fix?
So at the end of the conference, the 2 ministers actually said that they did the usual politician speak and said, "Oh, we were listening. We're going to implement what everyone has told us." But then they followed it with action. So what they're going to do is they're going to create a 12-person council, partly from the cultural sector and partly from the technology sector, who will advise the government on ways forward. And the reason that they're doing this is because the technology is changing so fast that they want people who are in the know to be advising them, because obviously they're politicians, they're not in the sector itself, which was very optimistic. And plus, the first question they got at the press conference was along the lines of, and I took notes, was along the lines of, let's see, about compensating creators whose work has already been taken. And, there's been some lawsuits that some have gone for creators, some have gone against creators for compensation. Like the big one that everyone is talking about is Anthropic, right? They scraped a whole bunch of authors' data and the courts have ruled against them and said, okay, you have to compensate the authors. So this is a direct quote from the Minister Solomon. The Prime Minister is going to stand up for the cultural industry, and he said that time and time again. So basically what he's going to do is they're going to look into compensation for creators, which is, I think, the direction that a lot of governments should go in, that they should not be ignoring these louder and louder voices. There was recently, and again, who knows if there's actually going to be any results from it, but the UK had recently said, okay, it's okay for these big AI companies to do what they want with the creators' data. And there was a huge backlash. This included, celebrity figures like Sir Elton John, who was like, no, this is not okay. Copyright law doesn't change just because a company has billions of dollars. And so the UK government has now walked it back and said, okay, we're going to look into this further. We were a little bit too hasty on this. And again, these are just words. We don't know if there's going to be any action from it, but I think people who make the laws are starting to listen to many, many, many creators who are saying they broke the law.
Yeah. What happens? You had mentioned something about an AI engine. I don't know if that's the right terminology, that escaped, that is now out in the wild. I don't know how to articulate that. Did they talk about that? How do you reel that in? I don't even, what does that mean?
This actually happened afterwards. I was reading an article and I don't know. I mean, there hasn't been a follow-up article to it, but there was one, the creators of AI are constantly testing their product. So they'll put them in these closed box scenarios and throw things at them and see how the AI reacts, just to see how the AI would react in the real world. And one particular study, I don't have the exact information, but maybe if I have it later, I can put it up. Essentially, they were testing this AI, had this closed box, and the next day they came back and it had escaped the parameters that they were trying to box it in. It had gone off and done its own thing, which is really scary because some of these are super, super powerful and have connections to basically everything: military weapons, financial systems. So if it can go off, and the specific example was it went off and it was mining Bitcoin. So it was accumulating money on its own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if it is actually going out and interfering with financial systems, that's not good for the rest of us.
Wow. So what was your uptake after the conference? How did you feel? Are you hopeful? Are you worried? Are you thinking we'll see?
I think I am more hopeful now than when I went. I think there's a lot of people who are concerned about the ethics and morality of AI when it comes to the cultural sector and how people are interacting with it, because there are always bad apples and they're trying to find ways to make sure that people come.
Yeah, I think the conversations are good. I guess it's sort of interesting to me because I'm not so sure how much control or influence human communities are actually going to have on this thing. I mean, I think we have control in the sense that it's almost like NIMBYism is a thing, at least in the United States of America, and I'm sure in Canada you have a certain degree of NIMBYism. And so these data centers, I think people will succeed in stopping data centers from being built in their community through collective action and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm skeptical. I mean, I guess back to a question you asked, Deborah, a little while ago, I actually do believe that it's going to be in our lives in a bunch of ways that we know about and don't know about. It benefits us and it doesn't benefit us. I think it's just going to be all over the place. And I'm not so sure. I mean, we had an opportunity to change things, but then again, we decided, the country just seemed to be, or people who were focused on other things won out. And so now we're not really paying attention to what these companies are doing.
Look at the example that Alison gave on what happened at the UK book fair, not the book fair, the outcry when the UK government said, yeah, they can do what they want. They managed to at least get the question on the table and have a conversation about it. And that is the first step. So I don't know, maybe I don't know if we've passed, if we're at the window to people, human beings, making a difference by giving their opinion. I don't know if that window has closed. Maybe it has closed, but
It really hasn't, because that's not the only example. I could pull out like half a dozen examples. Like, for example, there was a recent book fair in Paris where because of the amount of AI slop that is now on Amazon, they kicked Amazon out from their conference.
really,
Amazon. Yes, they said Amazon was a sponsor, and they said, you know what, we don't want you here. So Amazon withdrew. So people can make a difference. Creators can make a difference. I think that was the number one message that I walked away from this conference, because I went in like, everyone's going to say everyone has to use AI, and if you're a creator, you're screwed anyways. And that wasn't the message. The message is you can make a difference. So I think the
that's
more
actually
conversations we have, the better it is.
well, that's actually not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that creators can't make a difference, but what I'm saying is that AI will. There's so much money being, like in the United States of America, for instance, most of our investment is being put toward AI right now. I mean, the stock market is completely propped up by about 7 companies or so, which are basically investing in each other and then listing the investments that they got from another company as sales that they got from another company. I watched a video last night where they were talking about this surveillance system. I think it's called Flocked. And basically what they were saying is that at least in the United States, there are cameras in places that you probably don't realize have cameras. And the example that they gave is this guy sort of was able to connect, kind of break into this surveillance system that and so he broke into it, and then he was able to download video of himself walking through a park. So he was able to see that this camera in the park basically is constantly capturing whenever somebody enters the park. He showed like a guy was on a skateboard, and he was kind of skateboarding through the park and stuff like that. These cameras are everywhere. A lot of them are used to basically collect license plates when cars pass certain areas. They're not necessarily used for traffic infractions or whatever, even though we have those types of cameras. And he sort of explained, like, as he played the video, he explained that, like, the reason why it's focused on me is because the artificial intelligence can move the camera. And so he was the only person in the park. And so instead of just the camera sitting there taking the entire park, recording the entire park, it actually saw him enter the park, and it moved the camera to focus on him to make sure it got his face and everything else. And he was talking about how, like, even these private security systems, they can connect to this camera system. So, like, people feel the way they sell this as a positive to people is they say, well, if you lose your dog, you can connect to the camera system, and like the this system can help you find your dog or your cat or whatever. And he was explaining how, like, in his community in LA, he lives in a suburb in LA, they basically use it to sort of monitor who comes in and out of their system. That's the way they use it. So, like, people are constantly kind of, sharing messages about, oh, who's this guy? Like, did you see this guy? He came in to our neighborhood. Anybody know what he's here for? And blah, blah, blah. So that kind of thing is an example. It's not an example. It's not about creatives and stuff like that. It's not about artificial intelligence scraping the internet using our creative output to produce other creative output. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just how these systems can be sort of implemented throughout our society in a bunch of different ways that we may or may not know. And not everyone will see them as a bad thing, because people who live in these communities, one of the things they're very concerned about is, like, who comes into their community. And so they use this camera system as a way to sort of share that information amongst themselves to sort of, harass people depending on their profile.
I'm glad you used the
I
word
wanna say-
harass, because it doesn't sound like a good thing. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
no,
mean,
no, no.
to the people in that community, though, it's a good thing if I walk into the neighborhood, they may not want me there. Whereas if Deborah walks into that same neighborhood, they're cool with that. So that's basically the kind of
Yeah,
thing that they
exactly.
use, But go ahead, Brian.
Now, I was going to say, so there's the tools that exist today, right? But where all that investment is going, like you talked about the 7 firms propping up the stock market and things, is towards like this hypothetical future of, like general artificial intelligence,
yeah.
which we don't know we don't really know that it can exist. And frankly, I find myself rooting for it to fail, which unfortunately means a lot of economic pain, right? For a lot of people, because there's been like a lot put into this. So, so I'm rooting for, so we have a choice between like a dystopian future where where the machines revolt and kill us all, or some kind of economic collapse caused by the fact that so many people have put so much money into this theoretical AI tech. And yeah, anyway.
I want
No,
option C. Both of those sound terrible.
Well, I think it's too late. It's too late though. There's been too much put into it. There's been too much
No, that's true.
invested.
It's a bubble. It's a bubble right now.
yeah, and that's kind of what I meant when I said that. I I'm just skeptical. There is value in community action for specific things. And so you're describing, Allison, the artist community throughout Canada making their voices heard to a government that strikes me as a lot more amenable to what the citizens of Canada actually want, as opposed to,
Definitely.
the United States is just not like that. It kind of makes me an example of how where I'm coming from with this is it always seems stupid to me when a person who doesn't have much in terms of means says, well, I don't know that whether we can afford universal pre-K. Dumbass, we're spending $1 billion a day bombing Iran, $1 billion a day. So obviously at this point, the United States has money to do whatever it wants to. If it can just choose to bomb another country at the cost of $1 billion a day. And so that's an example of what I'm talking about, where I'm just like, I don't really know how much, because we didn't choose that. We didn't, there are a lot of things that our government does that, and companies, corporations do that we just didn't choose. And so I think AI is just going to be on one level is going to be an example of that, where the companies just do what they do and we just have to deal with it. And in that sense, I think we've already decided that that's the way it's going to be, because it's been that way with other things, with gun manufacturers. And I mean, we were able to dramatically impact smoking in the United States. Yes, we were able to do that. But we haven't actually, and we were able to make cars safer, for instance, with seat belts.
Seatbelt.
Yes, we were able to do that. And cut down on drunk driving. Yes, we were able to do that. But there were so many examples of things that we weren't able to do. And we're backsliding when it comes to climate change now, in the United
No,
States
that's
at least.
true, but I mean, there's always cycles. Like a good technological comparison to what's going on with the AI industry, and everyone is on board and it's everywhere. To me, is the space race. Because at one point, like space was the next frontier. We're going to have colonies on the moon. This is going to be wonderful. We're going to be mining everywhere. We're going to go to Mars, right?
Yeah.
And then the US and the Soviet Union at the time, they were off. They were spending tons and tons of money to be the first to do X, Y, and Z, right? Everyone was involved. It was on every cereal box. You want to be an astronaut. That's the frontier of the future. And there's still some of that. There's still some of that, like with the whole privatization of space and Musk and Bezos, and there's still a little bit of that dream left, but it's not to the same extent as it was during that initial frenzy back decades ago.
Yeah, we need
So
to
I feel
learn
like
our limits.
AI is sort of the same. Everyone's in a frenzy. It's new, it's exciting, it can do everything. It will do it will run your house. Let's put it in our toys. And eventually the furor will die down and it will be used for some practical things, but the bubble can't last. It really can't. A lot of places, I'm with Brian. A lot of places are going to go out of business.
I think it's less like the space race and more like nuclear weapons. And the difference is that governments developed nuclear weapons, but in this case, corporations are developing the nuclear weapon. But I don't think it's like the space race. I think it's a lot more like nuclear weapons. I
Well,
don't
it could be like the
necessarily.
space race. It could be like that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know enough technologically to know whether it's possible. I think that science may just put up a ceiling on where we can go. And that's where, now, if it's possible to reach this kind of like general AI, well, then, it's like, then we're screwed. It's just because I have no confidence that a real thinking machine would want us around. I feel like that's
Exactly.
Well, my view of that is you believe that because you're human, and so you know how humans are. You know that humans, like there are humans who want to kill other humans. So that's the reason why you're like, well, if you're personifying this intelligence and saying, okay, if it's extremely intelligent and has access to all this information, it will have the same, value set, the same perspective as a human being with a lot of power. And the thing that they keep finding out about these AIs is that essentially they do their own thing. They'll just decide they create their own language. Like Alison was talking about how like it'll just sort of decide to mine Bitcoin or whatever. It might go to Kalshi and start like betting in the betting markets and whatnot because it can do that. It can do that better than a person.
That's still like generative AI. I'm talking about like the theoretical, what the Sam Altmans and Elon Musk, what they actually want. What they actually want is
It's
like
actual
beyond
intelligence.
generative AI. It's
Yeah.
like a level where the machines can cure diseases that we've only made treatments for and
Well,
all of this type of stuff. It's
yeah,
a
but they are.
theoretical thing.
Yeah, but they already do gene sequencing much better than human beings. So they've basically made gene sequencing efficiency to the point where what used to take 2 years now takes 2 days.
Well, that's because people have done it. Once people have done it, the machine is able to kind of duplicate it. We're talking
Efficiently,
about
very efficiently. Yeah,
efficiently.
Yes and
exactly.
no. Yes and
Efficiently.
no. Yes and no. Deborah, you seem like you had something.
Nope. Nope. I got
Okay.
Go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say one thing that they found, and I wish I could quote the study, but basically they were looking at surgeons who were using AI to help them pinpoint, okay, we have to take out this organ, let's use AI to help us find it. Yeah, no, it was not good at it. In fact, it directed the surgeons to remove the wrong organ in some cases.
It wanted
So
to kill us. It wants to kill us already.
yeah, maybe that's the thing behind it. It's just like, oh, I'll take them out one by one. So yeah, it does in some cases help with like large amounts of data processing for research, but it's still, oh my goodness, the number of like, and I hate the word hallucination because it's just making shit up. Like it's not, can't find the answer. It's just going to make something up. So it's really not dependable. It's not trustworthy.
It's a moving target. It goes to the next place and the next place and so quickly. I don't think there's any limit to what these can become. It just seems to me. When you hear that this AI program escaped the box and is now buying Bitcoin, could anybody have imagined that happening? So surely could anybody have imagined that AI was able to write books that got through the censors or got through the publishers and they didn't even realize it was being done? Because I guess that was what happened with that one book, right? How did that book even get published? I guess what I'm saying is that just because it's doing something today and has limitations today doesn't mean that those limitations will just disappear in a year or maybe even less. It's just it's exponential what it does. That's what's so frightening to me about it. I just don't know. I don't know. I'm with Brian on this one. I think I'm with all of us on this one.
Yeah, and I mean, I get what you're saying about the writing books and writing music and all this kind of stuff. And yes, the thing about artificial intelligence is it's only able to do what it does because human beings have done it
Now,
multiple times over the course of many years and digitized it, because that's the thing that's made it possible,
it
is this digital record, this huge digital record. That's the reason why I believe Palantir did everything they could to get access to the UK's health records, because the UK is the only country in the world, because of their health system, where they actually have digital records of people from birth to death, and that wound up happening. And now, like, UK citizens have found out about it. It's already done. I mean, Palantir has already gotten that contract. And now they found out about it, and they're just like, whoa, wait a second, who, what, and what are they doing? I mean, and I'm sure they sold that as a way of saying, we have this system that can go through all this data and find things that would take human beings hundreds of years to find. And this system can probably find it in less than 5 years, So that's one thing.
you're
But when it comes to
Yeah,
let me just finish this one
I'm
point.
sorry.
The one thing I always think when people talk about artificial intelligence, writing books, and then getting it past people like human beings don't necessarily know that an AI wrote the book. As writers, we all know, and I'm sure we all have a certain amount of, I don't know, negative opinion about books that we can all agree are like, I wouldn't say inferior, but basically just like, they're books where the person didn't write it from a particular passion. It's almost like it's more a product than a work of art. And there are plenty of those novels out there. And those novels, in some cases, will be very, very popular. So human beings, it might have taken them longer, but they've already done, this, very like based on the standards of romance novels or mystery novels or sci-fi novels, what people want. They've already just gone in there and just produced that. So an AI doing it, to me, is kind of in that category where you just have this audience out there that just doesn't need the art to be very compelling or innovative or, whatever. They just want the same thing over and over again. That's what they want.
That's true, except from like the practical perspective, at least a person is eating from when a
Well, that's
person
true. That's
makes a
true.
routine bad book, at least that person ends up advantaging in some way.
That is true. That is true. And I mean, I'm hearing, since I'm probably the person who watches the most political media, I'm actually hearing people that I've never heard before talk about universal basic income because they know, well, I mean, we need a consumer base. We can, we're basically investing in this system, this network that's going to eliminate these jobs, those jobs, or whatever. And so we're going to need people to spend money to continue, to keep our economy going. So maybe we're going to have to just do what Alaska's been doing for decades, which is just give people a check every month or whatever, and then they can earn a living on top of that if they can find a job.
I guess my issue is the presumption that AI will only do what it learns from us.
No, it's not. It's not going to only do what it learns from us.
Exactly. And I think that's the presumption. It is only going to do what it is only going to base what it does on what it gathers from humans. I don't think that's what it's going to do. I think there's going to come
I mean,
a
I think
time
hopefully.
when
I mean, I
it's
think.
it's going to do. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian. What?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was just saying, I don't really know this terribly well, but my understanding is that the current state of generative AI is basically like that. It can do things just because we have, and it has the processing power to go through a lot of it. Now, it might do things like that we don't tell it to do, like the example of it mining Bitcoin, but it's not going to do something like unheard of. Not at this point. Like I'm saying, there's like a theoretical world if like what's his name gets his way. I don't know why I'm
Musk?
blanking on names. Well, it's not so much Musk, but who's the guy that's in
Sam Altman.
Palantir? Sam Altman, and like and those guys. If they get their way, there's this level of AI where it's going to do things we couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
And I don't know that actually is possible, but it's also just like so damn stupid and hubristic to think that we want that. Like it's confounding to me that people that have been educated would think, oh yeah, I want machines to go off and be able to do things we can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Well,
I don't know.
I think Sam Altman is probably thinking about like the cell phone example. I was a person when cell phones first came out where I was just like, I don't use the phone a whole lot. Why would I want a phone to be with me all the time? Why would I want that? Because I don't like being around the telephone anyway. When the phone rang, I wasn't eager to go and grab it back when we had landlines and whatnot. And so the idea of me leaving the house and someone being able to call me was not a pleasant idea for me. I didn't want that. And what they did is they created all these things, these services and products that people didn't know they would want eventually, that they could sell to people. So I don't use my cell phone to make calls mostly. I use it for a bunch of other things that I never imagined, and I think that's what Sam Altman and not so much Peter Thiel, because Peter Thiel is a much more diabolical person, but Sam Altman and some of the other people, I think that's what they're thinking, is that this thing will wind. And to be honest with you, I'm I'm stumbling across things that artificial intelligence can do. Like I didn't think I would want an AI computer. I'd gotten kind of used to the idea that the most I'm going to spend on a desktop is maybe $300, $400 because now they're everywhere, and it's not like back in the early aughts when it was this rare thing, and we spent like $2,000 on a computer. Remember that? And so now this guy was talking about how he bought an AI computer, and what he does is what it has is all these agents. And so instead of, you mentioned Excel, Brian, instead of having Excel installed on a computer and then you have to figure out, you have to basically go in, launch Excel, and then do the work, which in many cases is kind of drudgery work, using Excel. You can basically tell the agent, what I want you to do is to bring up Excel every single day, and I want you to take this information from this source and insert it into Excel, and I want you to do it in this particular way. So the information includes a list of names and addresses. I want the names to be first name, middle name, last name, and if there's a junior, third, or whatever at the end, I want that all of those things in separate columns. And I want the addresses to be connected in this way. And basically the agent will do that every single day for you. You can have a computer where you basically tell it to do that, So you might have a computer where it's like, okay, I have a bank account with a certain amount of money in it. I want you to log into Kalshi every day, find a bet that seems like you can figure out with pretty good odds what the answer is. And so you have access to this money, you place your money on this bet. And so when the money comes in, then that goes into the account, and then you'll always have up to this amount of money to work with. So the AI agent is basically building money for you. You just tell it to do that every day. I'm not a betting person, but I would pay an AI to bet for me. I guess the thing is what they're finding, and these are people who work with these things now. Most of us, we have a limited access to it, is that those AI agents will probably do other things in addition to the stuff we ask it to do. They probably will do that. So in
They
addition to
do. And
betting,
actually, there's a program that is an AI agent program that is now very popular. And like everyone in China is, for example, is adopting it, called OpenClaw, which is an AI agent program like what you're talking about. But it's very buggy, as most of these programs are. And it does stuff, if you give it access to your finances, it does stuff like bankrupts you, even despite other.
yeah, I mean, you might give
So
it one
it can be
account.
very problematic to
Well,
actually hook it up to anything else.
that would
One
be my reluctance.
programmer was using it, and it deleted his entire program because it didn't fit with the parameters that he gave. Like, he had been working on this for a long time, and it deleted everything because it didn't like it.
Yeah, I
So
mean, and
it's running unchecked a bit.
but what I'm saying is that, I think Deborah mentioned those agents are going to get better. Now, in getting better, that doesn't mean that they will only do what you want them to do. That's the thing. But I mean, I think going back to one thing, the question about Altman and what's his motivation, they're thinking that they're going to monopolize these industries. And so if we're the only people who are able to build, kind of like Microsoft, if we're the only people who are able to build these AI computers, there might be other companies below us sort of, installing these agents on there or whatever. We may not want to be the manufacturers of the actual physical desktop, but if we own all the patents and we're developing the operating system or whatever, the equivalent of the operating system, then we're set for the rest of our lives, basically. And the technology will get better. What I'm saying is that they haven't figured out a way, because every time they test these things, which is something you said, Alison, the agents never only do what you ask them to do. They never do that. They always do something else. What the other thing is hard to
like the
predict. You never
genie.
know.
Well, the thing is, it's
kind of
like the
like that.
genie. You
That's
make a
right.
wish, and they find a way to twist it. So this is what AI is right now. It's a genie.
Well,
Like, you
I mean,
can maybe it'll turn out well, but maybe it won't. You don't know. That's the
well, I
problem.
mean, you're consistently kind of assuming that the AI is going to harm you in some way. It might do what you want it to do and something else. So the genie might grant your wish and do other stuff. I mean, a genie can do whatever it wants, right? So why wouldn't the genie
I
go
think of
off and
these
do whatever
things
it wants to do.
I think of these things in a very basic humanistic, like hierarchy of needs kind of way. Is it going to help us achieve like self-actualization in our short lives? No, it's not. So is it worth it? I just feel like no, it's not.
But when you say worth it, though, I mean,
Is it worth the
or
risk?
is a war with another country worth it? No, it's not worth it.
No.
But you don't
No.
have any choice in that. It's happening. It's happening. You
Yeah.
know, just think about all the things that, especially things related to corporations, that are happening that you don't have any choice in. And to me, AI is in that category. That's the reason why I say that it's really more like the nuclear arms race, except corporations are the ones who are developing these things, not governments. That's the only difference. So that's the way I see it. And in that sense, I just don't see how. I think we can have limited success in terms of controlling this aspect of our life or whatever. But overall, it's here and they're going to do whatever they want with it.
I think people have in the past had success in kind of overthrowing the balance of power. I mean, in a sense, they always do. Every age that ends is because people kind of either collectively or separately in different pockets at the same time kind of bring about that kind of
It's interesting.
I'm thinking about the Enlightenment or the era
Right.
of like the French and American revolutions and those
I was
things, and
thinking the
then the
French
Bolshevik
Revolution.
revolutions, and like something's. I mean, like at the same time, something is going to happen with mankind to to erupt. Because I mean, even in the United States, where we've allowed corporations to rule over us as our gods, at some point there is going to be a break where people refuse to continue in that direction. That's my belief. I don't
Well,
obviously
end
know
up
that.
in a rollerball situation where it's all run by companies.
A
Oh,
rollerball situation?
Rollerball, it's an old movie. It's a dystopian movie where there are no governments. Everything is run by corporations.
We're there.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we're kind of already there.
It's an
But I
interesting
do.
to look at it, Brian. And so where do you think that takes us then? If you believe that history has always shown us that it's a certain point, things are changed
I
by
mean, it just depends on where people go. I mean, there's to bring it back to literature. There's like the Dune world where at a certain point, theoretically, technology got so good that it was a threat to us, so people outlawed it, and there's no more computers.
that's
They don't fight with lasers. That's why you have this super futuristic world that's also kind of antiquated,
I didn't
because at some point they just decided we can't trust machines anymore. Like, so I don't know. I mean, so that's I see that as like a realistic potential.
Well, look at what the example Henry gave of nuclear weapons. This is like nuclear weapons, right? Well, how often have nuclear weapons been used in warfare? So we've had them, not 0 times.
Japan.
Well,
Well,
twice,
okay, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
World War
Once,
II.
At least
It was
twice.
used
once. Yes, once.
technically twice in one war, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Against the same
but
country, yeah.
the world realized that they were too powerful and too dangerous to continue using in warfare. So have there been wars fought since then? Yes. Lots and lots of wars fought since World War II, where lots of different kinds of technology were employed, but not nukes. And there's a reason for that. It's too powerful for us. We cannot use them, otherwise we will destroy ourselves.
So I guess this video is going to be about AI then.
Nah.
Yeah. I mean, next time we can do marketing. How about?
Yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah, okay.